Hi, I'm Daisy Contreras. This week, we're going to do something a little different for Flowcast. I'm joined by a good friend, Stephanie Steele. Stephanie, thank you for joining today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Daisy.
So, Stephanie and I are both members of the Cor Unum core team, along with Myra Herrera, Sister Beth, and Sister Lori. And we're taking over this episode to talk about Cor Unum and share what the group means to us. So, one of the beautiful things about this group, Steph, is that you and I have had the opportunity to meet. I left Springfield back in 2019, and I'm living in Chicago now, but you're in Springfield. But despite all of that, we still got to build community through Cor Unum. And I know that each of us have, we each have a unique story and a reason why we joined Cor Unum. And I don't think you and I have talked about this before, but I've been thinking about why I joined. And I'm curious, what's your story, Steph? And, what attracted you to the group?
I was actually approached by Sisters Beth and Sister Claire after church one Sunday pre-pandemic. And I it was 2019, I think. Oh my gosh, maybe 2000, like late 2018. No, it would have been 2019. Or anyway, pre-pandemic, because that era is very gray. Time does not exist anymore. And so they approached me after church and they were like, "Hey, there's this really cool women's group. We were wondering if you would like to maybe join us." And at the time it was on Wednesdays. And so I had been, trying to figure out how to make friends in the area of Springfield. And that's because I live here, and I live, I don't know, like 15 miles outside of town. But I worked at the time in Pike County, which is about an hour and a half away from Springfield, about an hour and a half west. So I was like, how do I get involved in the area? How do I make friends? How can I like make genuine connections? Because I didn't want to be going out all weekend and doing the same things that I saw some of my other friends from college do. And I was just like, all right, well, I'll try it. And then the pandemic hit. And obviously, that halted for a little bit, at least for me on my end, because I lost all of the contact information, which I don't know if anybody knew that. I lost Sister Beth's contact information until I started going back to church when the pandemic was getting a little bit better. And probably it's 2022, so early to mid, right after not Christmas, Easter 2021. And I was like, oh, there's this group and I wanted to join. And I think Sisters Beth and Claire were there once again at church saying, hey, we remember you. Would you like to join us for community? And I was like, absolutely. I think that sounds wonderful. And like I said, I was just looking for a genuine connection that didn't involve going like out on the town all of the time. I wanted to be able to forge those relationships where I would be comfortable talking about things like movies and television shows and just sitting on the couch and maybe talking about faith every once in a while or all the time. I love my faith. And just not having, I mean, I'm in my 30s, as are a lot of the women in our group, maybe some a little bit younger, but 30s and up. And so I didn't want the club scene, if you will, anymore. It wasn't where I wanted to be. It wasn't where I wanted to head anymore. And it wasn't just my thing. So yeah, I know that's odd, but here we are. Enough about me. Why did you join? What attracted you to Cor Unum in the group? Like, what were you looking for?
Yeah, so I mean, very similar to you, Stephanie. When I lived in Springfield, I met Sister Beth actually through work. And there was a time when I just had a lot of questions about faith and religion. And I started exploring and having all these existential questions about life. And around that time in 2019 or so, like my grandmother also had just passed away. way. And I think I also needed a space to explore where my faith and religion fit into this moment of grief that I was experiencing. And I was also looking for community, and you mentioned, Springfield isn't the easiest place to find community. And I felt like Cor Unum really filled that void for me. There wasn't any pressure, we I didn't feel pressured. It was always just like a very extremely welcoming group, and yeah, a place where I could feel like I was accepted for who I am. A place, like you said, Steph, where we can just sit down and talk about current events, talk about what's happening in the community, talk about the books that we're reading, and talk about faith in a safe space. Which kind of leads me to my next question, right? We've been talking about community. What does community look like at Cor Unum?
Oh my gosh. So, community at Cor Unum is literally one of the most laid back experiences ever. Like you were saying, there's no pressure to be anybody but yourself. So like it's like a safe space to lean into your quirks
Right.
and to just like be the person you're meant to be, which I just absolutely love. And um I like too that we can have those open, real, honest conversations that are sometimes really tough. And we give people this space to express themselves, their frustration. And like, we might not be able to know what to do in the moment, but as a community, we come together and we look for solutions and how if it's something we're feeling frustrated on, it's like, okay, we understand that you feel frustrated. What's our next step? What are we going to do next? And so, community, it's very open, very welcoming, very much, I guess, proactive rather than reactive because we want to be. Wasn't it Fred Rogers that said, look for the helpers? And I feel like Cor Unum is just a community of helpers, people that are wanting to help the world be better and help young women and women alike, be the best part of themselves or the best version rather of themselves.
I like that, being proactive rather than reactive. And thinking, going through with that thread of community, what do you have a favorite memory so far? I mean, you've been part of the group for a couple years now. Do you have like a memory or something that you want to share that you when you think of Corunum that you think back on fondly?
Well, I when I initially read this question, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I could talk about this or this or this." There's just so many good memories that it's really hard to narrow down a favorite. So, I mean, one of my favorite memories. So we do a book club which you get to participate this month. Yes, maybe?
I, yes.
No pressure. So we do a book club, and the last book we read was The Happiest Man on Earth, and which is about 𝐎𝐧𝐞 𝐋𝐚𝐬𝐭, and he is an Auschwitz survivor, and he and probably some family members wrote this book based on his experience. And it's very short, maybe it's less than 200 pages, but it's very powerful. And we were sitting in the living room, and it was probably one of the larger groups we had had in a long time because we were feeling a little bit more safe because the pandemic was on one of those low points. And we had one of the most powerful conversations, like how did the Holocaust happen and how can we make sure that it doesn't happen in the future? And like I said, last question, where we were trying to be proactive and not reactive, because one of the things that we talked about that night was that change is made in small living rooms, and it just takes one drop at a time for it to ripple. And so, I mean, it's conversations like that are my favorite memories. It's really hard to pin that down. I just there's just something so real and wholesome about that sort of experience.
I agree. I think it's through our conversations in conversations and sharing our thoughts on things like that that kind of leads us to like the bigger things and like what's next, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, exactly. What about you though? Because I mean, we've only been able to meet up in person one time, and like that was awesome, and I loved it, and I hope you get to come
Mm.
soon or we come and visit you. But you were here pre me. So, what are some of your favorite memories of Cor Unum?
It was absolutely lovely meeting you and this summer and spending time at the Cor Unum house and sharing meals together with Myra, Sister Beth, Sister Lori. I think that's like, something recent that just stands out to me a lot. But if I had to choose like a memory pre-pandemic, I guess I would say it would have to be when I was sadly leaving Springfield to move away for work. Extremely I felt very supported by the community at Cor Unum. I was actually collecting moving boxes, and the sisters, including Sister Mary Claire, were on the lookout for boxes to give me. It was a very last minute move, so I was scrambling to get packed up. And so when I stopped by the house to pick up the boxes, we realized that they didn't fit in the car. so Steph, picture two petite women, Sister Claire and I, rearranging the car seats with like what felt like a million different ways until we made those boxes fit, and we made them fit. It was quite the job.
Oh my gosh. That's you can't see my face right now and I'm trying to muffle it because of the microphone, but it's like adult Tetris and I can picture the both of you and like the frustration but also the joy in working together. It just makes me it makes me giggle. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think one thing about Cor Unum is that, we want to keep creating memories like these and meeting other young women in the community. And like you say, Steph, we're in our 30s. Some of the other young women are younger than us, but, we want to keep meeting each other and supporting each other. And so we have some events and activities coming up. Is there a particular one or a couple that you're most excited about?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, Thanksgiving is not my bread and butter, but Friendsgiving is. And so we're planning on having a Friendsgiving celebration here towards the middle of the month. I think it's like, oh my gosh, is it like in 2 weeks? I'm so pumped about that.
Yeah, pretty soon.
Yeah, pretty soon. And then we are planning on doing like, some holiday things like Secret Santa. And then a couple weeks ago, we did a Lincoln Ghost Walk, which was awesome. I'm in the process of getting a yoga instructor to come and do a Cor Unum yoga session. And we're thinking of maybe, maybe doing a yin and pin, so if everyone is open to it, of course, doing a yoga session and then following that up with a very short but sweet and painless acupuncture session. So, just some really like fun but like different things in the spring too. We have plans to help Sister Lori and Beth clean out Sister Lori's, oh my goodness, flower beds, and get those ready for the springtime. So those are some like social things that we have upcoming. And then of course book club, shameless plug. Uh, right now we're reading Firekeeper's Daughter. So it's a YA book. It was one of Reese's book club picks. And it's really good so far. So 10 out of 10 recommend.
So I think definitely a lot of different things that for different people, right? Like not everybody might be into reading books, but maybe they're into cleaning up the gardens come spring and planting new flowers, right? Like there's something for everybody and you get to learn if you haven't done it before either.
Yes, absolutely. Hold on just a second. Sister Beth, you're getting a telephone call on your
Oh no.
um I don't do you want me to answer it? Yeah, the phone's ringing. Well, I think it's Sister Joan. I don't think she would appreciate I mean, also, I guess if you wanted to keep this in, it would just be very much Cor Unum. It's up to you. Other things, Daisy, because like you said, there is something for everyone, which is really wonderful and awesome. We do also do some virtual things. For instance, on Wednesdays, on first Wednesdays of the month, we have a Bible study that is virtual for those that would like to join us from afar. Right now, it's just an introductory kind of set to get us a little more. It gives us the space to experience it at a lower level. So then that way, when we do our next one, hope we can hopefully delve in a little bit deeper and ask those deeper biblical questions. And then on third Sundays, we have virtual meetings via Zoom. And we've been focusing on podcast series. This one that we are doing is the 1619 Project, and we're focusing on social justice through education of ourselves and seeing how, once again, we can be proactive, taking what we've learned and what we know to be true, just helping the community. So we do those things. We've also, have some other, so like I call it socials and services. So it's not just women being social, we're also, giving back to the community, and we're serving the community that we do live in. One of the game plans is that in the winter months, specifically for our January meeting, we're going to be collecting cold weather things for those that are less fortunate. Hats and gloves and coats, and they could be brand new or gently used. It's not just us saying, oh my gosh, this is cool, let's do this, which is wonderful, right? We all love that part about clubs that we're in and about social groups that we're in, but it's also about giving back to the community that we reside in, which I think is really awesome. Essentially living out the gospel in a way.
You mentioned, a couple of activities where, they're going to happen on a rolling basis, right, next year. And so finally, Steph, with that in mind, let's touch on where you'd like to see the group go. What is our ultimate goal? And I guess I'll go first.
Okay, yes, please.
I think I want people, young women, to feel like they've found a place where they can be themselves and where they can grow and learn from each other. And just as I've learned from everyone during these last 3 years, and I look forward to continuing to see new faces in either these virtual meetings that we have, virtual activities, or in person when I get to travel to Springfield. I want to see more young women coming together. What about you, Steph?
I am hopeful that with with the service part and the social part, we can perhaps bring in people that have new and fun and fresh ideas that maybe we haven't thought of as a core team. I think that it would be wonderful, to get some new fresh faces and what people, I guess, may not know is that because we are so chill, for lack of a better word, um, because we are so chill, we're very much open to, a brainstorming of ideas. Like, what do you want to see? What would you like to do to help the community? Because there are different ideas and different functions and such that we haven't even begun to think of or scratch the surface off of. I mean, truly, the only place to go is up at this point. And I mean, I feel like with the pandemic and everything, we've been on some, this is such a wonderful adventure, and it's been such a wonderful mountain climb so far. And I can't wait to see where we go from here, because, the world is our oyster.
Yeah, and with that beautiful thought, Steph, I want to thank you for being here to talk about Cor Unum. And who knows, we might be back here together to chat again at some point in the near future.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad that we got to do this and got to have a little chit chat for Flowcast.
I'm Daisy Contreras, and that was Stephanie Steele. Have a great week, everyone.
Hi, this is Sister Beth Murphy, Flowcast producer and Cor Unum community team member. If you enjoyed Daisy and Steph's banter about Cor Unum, I invite you to learn more. You'll find ways to get connected to Cor Unum in the show notes at flowcastlisten.org. There's lots more to learn about the Cor Unum story and plenty of ways you can get involved. Until next time, so long from me and my Flowcast colleagues, Brandon Durham and Jean Ann Miller. God bless.